everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Security Champions podcast. And I'm here with my partner in crime, essentially co-host on the Security Champions podcast, Mike Burch. We're going to be talking about the summit, the Security Champions Summit that we just ran a couple weeks ago, which was an amazing event. Hopefully you were able to make it. If not, that's okay. There will be others, hopefully, that come around, but Mike and I wanted to talk about the whole event, right? So leading up to the event itself, and maybe where we go in the future. So I think maybe we just start with some behind the scenes here. What did it take to put this thing together? And Mike, you were absolutely instrumental. I will give you the credit in terms of the idea for the event, even though sure, you invited my input and all of that stuff. But why don't you go ahead and talk, where did this come from? Where did this idea even come from?
So definitely one of the biggest parts of this, I think, was the podcast was a founding part of this, right? They kind of led on to the second phase is the podcast in hopes that what we do here is part of building community in the larger audience of the world around champion programs, awareness, giving support to champions, right? And as part of this, it's probably a year ago when the first idea even trickled in of wouldn't it be really cool to have a conference, right? Something that we could bring a larger community brand around and have people come in and be able to share ideas, talk about being a champion. Because I think one of the most interesting parts is and part that kind of blows me away is it's just never been done, right, for champions yet. I feel like it's hard to find a security discipline out there that doesn't have some sort of conference or event around it, like everywhere, like everything has it. Champions just hadn't hit that marker yet. So the idea started like probably a year before that the actual event, which is like if you're listening to this later in your world, that was around October 1st and 2nd of the 2025. But it didn't really flesh out till much later, because the hardest part of that is thinking like, how do we get all the right people? What infrastructure? How do we host this? Is it a live event? Is it a virtual event? And a lot of the stuff that went into that. And I think what we did was amazing. And especially once we finally made that decision to go, that's when the magic really started. And to be honest, and as we go into this is like, yeah, the original idea was there, but bringing you on board to help run this and find the right people, like that was one of the biggest facilitating parts to me because they actually happened. So amazing, like absolutely instrumental to us pulling this all together. Curious, like when I first brought the idea up to you, because I know the idea was like, hey, we'd love to do a conference. I'd love to do about champion stuff. What was your initial kind of thoughts, apprehensions, because that's a lot. It's a big thing to ask in a short amount of time from that. It's like, hey, let's do a conference in a few months.
Yeah, it certainly was a short timeline, but I think we were able to pull it off. We could probably talk about that later. Yeah, what was my first thought? My first thought was, how come no one's ever done this? How come there's an existing one? Why are we the ones to introduce this? And as you know, I've been talking about champions for a long time now. I've seen success with security champion programs to the point that I have made it a mission, right, to get more visibility into this entire concept. So excitement, but also, this has to go right. Like I think that this is a milestone, right? I think the concept of champions has been maturing over time, and I think this represents a certain period in the history of this champions concept that had to go right, okay? Because I don't know, otherwise it would be a lot, much to do about, or much ado about nothing. If we kind of bring all this together and then it's sort of the apex of now we have a conference dedicated to it and it doesn't go well, then goodness gracious, that's not good either. Not to mention you're passionate about it, I'm passionate about it, so it had to go well, and I think we did pull that off. But that was one of my other thoughts, is this better go well, because it does represent a lot. There's a lot riding on this.
Yeah, and one of the interesting parts to me on that is it's kind of like launching a champion program, right? If you do it poorly, it's really hard to get buy-in for a second chance, right? So how can we get, like, if we launch this conference and then like it doesn't take well, nobody attends, we get bad reviews, getting a second try is really, really hard. And to be honest, what it would probably take is a complete rebranding. And that's the same thing when you think about like a champion program. You launch it once and it doesn't go well, you have to completely rebrand that thing to try again because like there's a bad taste in people's mouth. There's a bad perception around what happened, right? So same apprehension here, right? We had to make sure this really, really landed well. Yeah, and as part of that planning process, right? One of the things I think me and you talked about a lot when we were going in of like who was this conference going to be for, right? And who do we think we could get attend and add value to? And I think one of the other things too is like making sure that as an apprehension, I think we even did a short video ahead of time to promote it and be like, hey, by the way, this isn't just vendor pitches. We really are here for the community. Come check us out. We're gonna have real speakers. Because I think there's a lot of apprehension that people are like, oh man, a vendor's running a conference. Is this just gonna be a big long sales process? And we want to put that out there. Like, no, this is community. We're trying to make a real thing of this. We want to do this every year. We want people coming back. Some of the stuff. So, what are your thoughts about some of the things that we went through, especially our target audience? Like, what some of those like thoughts of like who was this really for?
Yeah, I think it was a varied audience, and I think that this was intentional, right? We didn't just want this to be for people running programs or just for champions. We wanted to have content for both because I think it's about bringing together people together and having the right conversations, right, with the right folks who are trying to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish here. So we had content that was focused on here's how to start a program, run a better program, etc. But we also had content for the champions. Why should you become a security champion? Or here are some tools in your tool belt if you are a champion to execute that role better, right? And I think that was the intention because I think, especially for the first conference, like we have to approach it from a few different angles. There's a lot going on here. It's not simple. Like you're saying with, it's very difficult to launch a program, which I'd love to, and this is kind of my behavioral science side kicking in. I'd love to dig into that a little bit more. Why is it difficult to start and run a program? Because it is. Why is it difficult to create an event like this and also have it be successful? I would say there are the same underlying reasons, and that's that people are hard to capture their attention of and also to get them involved in and engaged in general. Okay, people are fickle is kind of like the way that I like to say this. And it is what it is. Like a lot of it is entertainment. Like I want to make sure I am enticed and curious to attend something like this. And why would I come out of my shell and even participate in this versus being more of a passive attendee? There's a lot of stuff going on there, and it applies to champion programs as well. So yeah, just wanted to spend a second and address that side. But what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because it's a lot of the same issues. It's because it's a community building event, right? That's what champions are. So this is kind of like one of those artifacts of being a community building event. Part of the reason we actually aligned it to October Awareness Month, right? Because that aligns to people should be looking for stuff to do. Now, you should be doing stuff all year, right? That's my heavy opinion. But man, is it way easier to get people to buy into, hey, we should do something for October because it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right? So it's part of that capturing the attention, aligning our event to the time that everybody else is thinking about this stuff, right? It's kind of aligning it to what people are already doing, kind of interesting part to that. But it's that same is who can we get the right people engaged and are we giving them enough value for them to give us their time, right? So that same type of thing that we think about champion programs. I'm asking people to do something. Well, I'm asking you to attend my conference, just like I'm asking you to do a security activity in your organization. Except this time, when you attend my conference, I'm asking you to take away from work that you're normally doing on a work day and come and engage with me, right? So it's the exact same thing, right? It's the same type of thing, except we're in a very condensed timeline of what we're asking for, and we get like kind of a one shot, and then hopefully it's successful and we can get you back next year, which is one of those interesting things there. Finding speakers. So this is another interesting part because this is, first conference I've ever ran. I don't know about you, Dustin, but one of the interesting parts to that is these first conferences, you see the big players, they've been doing this for years. They're like months out, they're doing call for papers, people are competing to get in and be speakers. That's not really the way you can launch one of these events though, right? Launching one of these events, it's It's like headhunting, right? It's like being a recruiter. You got to find the right person and you got to convince them to come, that it's going to be valuable for them to give their time. Like you go to RSA, you got thousands and thousands of people trying to just get in for a moment to talk. You got a little conference like we put on. It was more like, hey, come support our event. It's valuable. We know you're passionate about it. Give us your time to be a champion for us, right? How do you think that kind of played in, right? Finding those right people. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, that was a major role you found, is finding people that you've worked with in champion programs in the past, or people that you know personally that run this stuff, picking the right people, kind of that process.
Yeah, and I think this is where I would recommend and emphasize the importance of investing in your network. Okay, so there's a few things I want to talk about here. First of all, I do have some experience with this because I do organize and I have organized events that are for champions. Okay, I'm going to bring in a speaker or two. There's a monthly get together community event for security champions. I need it to go well every single time. I want to see those numbers in terms of engagement and attendance going up. If I have a poor event, the opposite happens. So there's sort of that pressure that I've dealt with to get these events right. And a lot of it is about, like I was saying, building and maintaining that network of folks that you trust, but also who trust you. Okay. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again because it's a good phrase that kind of sticks in your head. Don't make the first time you meet someone because you need something. Okay. So if you're only reaching out to people when you need something, hey, I need a thing from this could be internal to your organization, right? I need a thing from that engineering leader all of a sudden. So I'm going to go meet him and see if I can get the thing. Okay. Not a good approach. You want to be meeting these people well ahead of when you actually need to ask a favor from them. And that's kind of how this came together. Okay. I've invested quite a bit of time in building strong relationships of mutual trust. It was relatively straightforward for me to reach out to folks and just say, hey, do you want to be part of this? This could be, I've done something for them in the past, right? So now I'm maybe asking you to get involved in something. You've asked me to go speak to your champions, let's say at your company. I've done that, right, for free. So now I'm asking you, can you sort of return the favor? And it's all about that. It's like horse trading, which actually came up in the conference itself during one of the sessions from Emily, which I thought was brilliant. That's really what it's about. It's about getting out there and sort of doing favors for folks. So that's how it came together in terms of finding the speakers. And the other thing that I want to mention about this is the people who believe in champion programs that are going to come speak about them are passionate about them. So it's also a little bit of an easy sell. Hey, do you mind coming and joining us to talk about champions, which I know that you're already passionate about and love to talk about? The answer is yes, right? So I've just found that the people that really understand and get this stuff are also very passionate about it.
When I think about the setup we did here too, and kind of the audiences we brought in and the process we went through, that relationship building is really important. And it's actually I pull back on a phrase I've heard you say, I've heard other people say, mostly you, that when you get in this role, you become a salesperson, right? Well, what are my best salespeople? Well, they're not the person that's like just shows in my company and like, I have no clients and no relationships, but I'll try to find somebody to sell to. No, it's that salesperson that spent like 20 years in the industry. They're like, I know someone from every cyber company around that I already have a relationship with, and I'm going to walk in the door and I'm going to be able to reach out to my friends and start selling what you have, right? That's the person that has a ton of value, right? And when you think about that from our perspective, right, it's the same things. We have to embody the fact that we are salespeople for security. Some of that value is building those relationships ahead of time so that, like you said, when you need them, you already come equipped and you know people. And actually, to be honest, for most of us that are trying to run champion programs or stuff like that, get to know the people that are going around and doing these talks. There's a ton of people that we know that will actually come in and come talk to your champions or come support those things, and building those relationships with those people ahead of time, not just when you need them, can be so valuable to the success of your program. And to be honest, half the time, if you just want a 10-minute chat, already having like somebody that you know in the space to be able to talk to in that mentorship way is very powerful, right? As the tidbit, I'm pretty sure that Dustin Lehr and myself, anytime that anyone that listens to this wants to come out and chat, be like, hey, I'd love to talk to you. Open books, always loving to have a conversation, right? But that's part of that network building. You gotta take the first step, reach out and just see if someone's willing to have a conversation with you and build that relationship a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just a couple of things to focus on as you're trying to build relationships is to make sure you're listening and make sure you're trying to help in some way. Okay. If you show up and you're like, I want to build a relationship with you because I might need something from you in the future, so let's talk. How are your kids or whatever? That's not a good way to build a relationship, right? You have to be willing to put yourself out there to provide something for them as well, right? And I think this is where the horse trading comes in, and where I've spent a lot of my time investing in these relationships is, how can I help you? And I think that this is the sales or vendor approach that works, and especially these days, right? This is an approach that works so much better than, hey, I just met you, I'm going to send you a LinkedIn message with a pitch, and then when we meet, I don't really care about where you're coming from. I have a really cool product and I'm just going to try to sell you on it. Like, certainly that is a turnoff, right? Instead, flip the script a little bit. You know, tell me more about yourself. Tell me about the things that you're struggling with, right? Whatever it is. And then even pointing out something that they're doing that you appreciate and you might even want to get involved with. This absolutely applies to building relationships internally to your company as well. I know you're a security team. You have an agenda, you need to accomplish some things, but accomplishing those things by getting feedback and asking and listening to others is going to get you a lot further along.
No, an interesting thing that I mean, think about community building too is just never turning down opportunities to share the information you have. Right, that's such a powerful little thing there. As our teams, especially security teams, I know we're already often we're very thin, right? We have a lot to do with a small amount of time, right? That's why champion programs exist, right? Because if we could have a security person in every team, we wouldn't have this issue, right? But that's not the reality. Part of that though is like finding the time to just shave away and give people. And it could be as simple as that idea of like we just host a session open floor that people can come ask this question, and we do that on a regular basis, right? Open door communications. I'm giving my time. I'm giving you access to me to be able to for me to help you with what you're trying to accomplish, right? Just doing that little type of thing can have such a long-term impact. Right. I gotta reorient back to the conference though for a second here because I love the way the direction of the conversation is going. But one of the things I do want to talk about as we're thinking about having set all this up and everything else, what were some interesting things that you ran into maybe while finding the speakers and like kind of like getting this kind of lineup of what we think we wanted to present here?
Yeah, and I talked about going behind the scenes here a little bit as well. I think in any good event, you're going to have some emergencies, right? You're going to have maybe, oh, I was planning to have a speaker. I was going to, have this session and they can't do it anymore. Okay, last minute, we have to find a replacement. That certainly happened here. I'm not even going to tell you which session that was because I think we pulled it off. Okay, so I think you should pretend that all of them were pre-planned and there was no stress behind any of it, and hopefully that's what you saw. But in the background, like it's like this show must go on thing. I think about theater and the stage where there's an emergency in the background behind the scenes. But when it comes to figuring all that out, organizing it as quickly as possible, and then going out onto the stage, it can't look like that, right? The audience is expecting you to seem like you have your stuff together in order to bring this together. But in any good event, that's going to happen. So there were instances of that, which was fine. And then in terms of other things behind the scene, tech issues. I don't know if you were there at the beginning of the event. That happens. So we did our best, right, to bring this together and work with the tools, et cetera, that we have, and so forth. So there's a lot going on there. Kudos to our marketing team, by the way, for bringing a lot of this together, choosing the tech, testing the tech, being there running around in the background, there's always people in the background who deserve a lot more credit than they get. And I think this is very true for security people. This is very applicable for running a champion program, but also your friendly security team, right? What are they running around constantly doing so that you can do your work, right? And so everything can seem like it's nice and stable and as it should be.
One of the other critical decision points we had to think coming into this is we didn't want it to just be you listen to us talk, right? We wanted community involvement. And I think one of the best decisions we made is how we did that in our sessions. For those who didn't attend, we actually had some live breakout rooms where you could join a group of your peers and have a conversation. And that was a critical, I think, decision point for us going in there because I think that was some of, I mean, like as far as engagement, involvement, now I feel like I have a piece of the conversation and I can be a part of it. That took it from us just like come listen to us to like, come join us, give us what you think, tell us your stories, and definitely something we were going to maintain in the future. But I think that was a critical part and decision of how we were going to do this. Another side note on that too was the decision to make sure it was virtual, right? Like I think the hard part with some conferences is to show up and be somewhere, you have to have a budget. You have to be able to fly, go hotel, take the time off. That decision to keep it virtual, I think, made this so accessible, right? Where we were able to find that balance of we were able to get still some live engagement where people can interact with each other like you would hope from a live in-person conference. But we kept it accessible and it's free, right? We're not charging you to come. We want you to be here, right? So I think there's some critical things that we definitely discussed early on that really helped to the success of what this entire thing was.
Yeah, and I think it, not to toot our own horns here, but I do think it makes it's good that Security Journey invests in such things, right? This feels like a nice charity work community effort, right? Where we're just pulling this together. It's completely free, and we want to bring the right folks together to have a fruitful conversation for all, right? And I think that is really important. I think that says a lot about Security Journey. Just as an insider looking, or an outsider, I'm going to pretend I'm an outsider looking at Security Journey. How many vendors, right, do that kind of stuff? Not enough. Okay, so I'm proud, right? I'm proud that we took the time to put this together because it was a lot of folks and it was a lot of work, and the outcome, in my view, was pretty amazing. So I wanted to continue the conversation. The first part, we really talked about what it took to bring the whole thing together. I want to talk about the actual event itself. How did it go? What were some of the highlights and so forth? And then maybe future plans as well. So, Mike, what stood out to you?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I would say that stood out to me is I'm going to do a call out about how it went, to be honest, is how many live participants we had on that day one. We were close to 250 people that logged in that day to join us live on day one. A massive adoption. Like that was a phenomenal join in. Really, really inspired by that. But what I also took away from that first day, right, is it wasn't just, and it took a minute too. So here's one thing I will say is we set up the sessions so people could have discussion as the sessions went, right? At the very beginning, right, we did our kickoff call, got through a little technical difficulty, got everybody on the same page, and we started launching into keynotes, right? And in the beginning session, I think everyone was kind of like holding back and cautious and not sure they wanted to gauge. Dustin, you did a great job of like, I know you're there. I'm gonna keep putting information out until one of you guys talk to me. Like you saw that throughout the event, right? That was a key part to it. And then it was like a wave broke. And then once that wave broke, it just kept going. Where that first person made that comment and they joined in the conversation during one session and we started engaging. And then it went from the just listening to someone talk to people were having conversation live with us, with other attendees, with the speakers that were speaking as we went from session to session. It became this interactive experience that we were able to have conversation while we were having talk. And actually, I think that's an amazing value that you don't get from a live conference, right? A live conference, I can't be sitting here chatting with you. I'd be like, hey man, he's saying, do you agree with that? Like you can't do that, right? So I think that I think that one of the engaging parts that I thought that I took away from that first day is it took a moment, but everybody really wanted to be talking about everything that was happening as it was happening. There was a lot of value in that part of the conversation too.
Yeah, I think like anything, especially if you don't know people very well, you're going to be a little cautious, right? You're going to kind of dip your toe in a little bit. You're like, what is this all about? What are these people all about? Are they pushing an agenda? Are they trying to make a sale? What's going on here? But I think, what we did that helped people feel more comfortable is we continuously invited people to engage. And I go through this a lot in terms of the presentations that I'll do, more in a live audience, where if I would like to request someone's feedback or whatever it is, audience participation, like I'll wait. I will wait. You've probably seen speakers go, does anyone have any questions? Okay, no questions. Great. Let's move on. No. Does anyone have any questions? I know you have a question. I'll wait.
Let them sit in that silence.
I will sit in that silence. And then what happens is it gives people time to collect their thoughts, and then they're going to speak up. And it happens almost every time. So I think it happens every time. I said almost every time, but I'm going to say right now it happens every single time. So I think it's about giving people the space, right, to collect their thoughts, but also continuously encourage them. It's okay, not everyone has this perfect, right? Like, you don't have to come with all the answers. If you have a question, go ahead and, share it with us. We can all learn from each other. I can learn from you as well. Maybe that's a situation I haven't run across. So that's what I think we did, and I think it created an atmosphere that people did feel comfortable, right, speaking up. But it took a little time, like going back to the human behavior thing, right? It's going to take some time for people to sort of warm up and get comfortable to do such things.
Thinking about the first day sessions, obviously you had a great keynote speak. And one thing I will share to the broader audience is, as of right now, you had to attend to see the talks, but over time, we're going to be exposing these conversations we had to the general public. So there will be opportunities in the future to see some of the content that happened at this conference. So you just got to be on the lookout, and we'll release some of that over time, right? But one of the things, interesting part, so great keynote speak, by the way, Dustin. A great conversation around champions and culture and kind of how to throw it all together. But on that second part, right after that, one of my favorite things we did is we did champion stories, right? We had champions come in and say, hey, I was a champion, or I am a champion, right? And this is where it took me. This is what that was like. This is where it led me in my career. And I think being able to share that with the broader audience was really powerful. I think there was intent to see champions, give champions an opportunity to see where it could take them, but really for the people running programs to have that mindset of, oh wait, I can talk about this is what that could be and how it could take you in your career if you choose to be a champion, right? What are some of your thoughts? I know you were in that discussion too as hosting it, right? But kind of your thoughts around that talk.
Yeah, I think what I love about that talk is this was a program that I had designed. So to hear it from the other side. And I kind of mentioned this in the session itself, but it takes a lot of work and time to bring this thing together, right? There's a lot to consider. There's a lot of moving parts. And to hear, after executing that and putting your sweat into it, right? To hear that it had such a positive impact on the champions themselves is so extremely rewarding, right? And this is the reason I wanted to have this session, is to inspire folks who are creating programs like this to take the time, right, to do a really good job, because it's going to be very meaningful for the champions, as you can see, right? And I think that panel session was all about that. Like, how can you inspire people to go above and beyond and do things like create book clubs and create newsletters and all these cool things that the champions ended up doing, that it would have been impossible to order them to do it, They have to feel inspired and they have to pursue it of their own volition. And I think that's huge. In terms of some sessions that stood out to me, and sort of in general how I thought the whole thing went, I thought it was really cool to hear from a handful of different folks about their unique champion models. Okay, so the other side is the admins, right? The people who are running and have designed these programs. There's no one way to do it. And we heard from several different folks who shared, what Amazon's looked like. We heard, from others as well. And I thought that was extremely valuable. Because one of the takeaways I really wanted people to have is you can do this and it doesn't need to look like what everyone else is doing. Take the time to be creative and come up with your own culturally specific design that's going to work for you.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Hearing from all the different leaders were definitely it was eye-opening, right? Actually, the session I ran a panel on for kind of the future champion programs, right? That was one of the sessions I kind of helped host. And it was interesting to hear these different personas, and I'm gonna tell you what, they don't always agree about what a program looks like. And I actually think that's really important for people to see, because programs like this, there's no cookie cutter way to do this. It just isn't, right? You can't be like, oh yeah, we just follow the champion framework that is the champion framework, and that's the only way it goes. Like, that doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for every organization. It doesn't work depending on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you're trying to, every organization's gonna have different goals, and your champion program should fit that, should fit your culture, should fit your goals. So having the opportunity to talk about like what is this and what this might look like, that was very eye-opening to me. I mean, there was even discussion of like, some people were saying, well, I think champions would be a formalized position. Like, I will hire a champion. And then other people were like, nah, that's never going to happen. Like, that doesn't make sense. But the interesting part is, maybe for your org it does. And there's one of the people we had talking did that same thing. They actually worked with an organization and they hired people to be champions. And that's the way they ran it, and it worked really well for them. So it's very interesting to see the diversity in the way that people approach this problem. And it reinforced to me that for you to have a successful program, it can't be, well, I Googled the first thing that's champion programs and we tried to roll it out and it didn't work, so champion programs don't work. There's a reason that didn't work, and it has nothing to do with champion programs, right? You get in what you put out, and you got to customize it, and you got to nurture it for it to be successful.
It's exactly right. And it kind of brings us back to a theme we were talking about earlier, and that's listening. Right? This is not a cookie cutter thing. I'm just going to, I don't know, spend a couple of minutes and just have a little champion program thing going on. This does not work, okay? Taking the time to really understand the culture and how people are going to respond to something like this and adjusting accordingly is so extremely important. I talk about this a lot. Like the champion design process is not there's a single path that you just need to follow. It's more of take the time to understand your unique goals. What are you even trying to accomplish with this? Understand the people at your culture. Come up with specific things that you're looking for them to do, right? Specific responsibilities, specific actions that you want them to take. I'm going to host a meeting. I actually want people to show up. Okay, write that down. I want high attendance in my meetings. I want engagement. I want people to ask questions, etc. And then from there, thinking about how am I going to encourage people to do that? What's in it for them? Why would they? Why would they speak up? Right? This isn't just this magic thing. I put everyone in a Slack channel. All the champions are there. Cool, I did my job. They're just going to magically interact, right? No. And this is where it comes back to the people thing. People just don't respond that way, right? You have to continuously find new and unique and creative ways to engage with folks, or it's not going to work. So I love what you said, though, around, just essentially that programs could be in trouble. And in some cases, it's because I think folks just think it is cookie cutter. So just want to address that real quick. But going back to the event, what about the future of this? Where do we go from here, Mike? This was a successful event, I would say. We had 250 people show up, 500 people register, which I thought was amazing. So where do we go from here? What are some of the next steps, you think?
Yeah. So we're gonna do it again. Part of this was seeing is like, what attendance did we get? Did people enjoy this? But now the question is, okay, we're gonna do it again. But what's that look like, right? One of the big things that for a startup event, like we said, we had to recruit people. Like we got to find people that actually like come support our event. I want this to be more accessible, right? We want this to be something that people want to be part of. So I think some of the big things we're gonna do is we're gonna probably set up a call for like presentations, like have find people out there in the world of champions and all these organizations that actually want to share their stories, because that's the biggest thing is that if we're always the ones like picking the speakers, right, we lose such a large audience of the people involved and passionate about this, and I want to hear what everybody else is doing. I want to hear what everybody else has to share. So I think that's a big one is we're going to try to get a broader community and diversity coming in and sharing these conversations. I will say this, we got feedback, right? We've been getting feedback. We've been trying to understand what best next time. One of the other interesting parts is we're thinking about running a couple tracks, right? Because this time I think one of the things that we ran into that is we just had one track that everybody got to follow, and the idea was, well, if it's relevant for you, show up. If it isn't, yeah, you don't have to, right? Now I think they were all relevant for everybody, but I'm biased, right? So I got to find something that you find relevancy in to want to participate. So we're definitely thinking about like a champion track or like a program running track. Don't hold me on those names. We'll get better names. But the idea is like make it more relevant to the people and make sure there's stuff that people can engage in. Yeah, I don't know. What are some of the things you thinking about of us? Of like we're doing this next year and that people talked about like would love to see more of.
I think this is called a summit, so we should talk about something like a trail or a path,
Yeah.
something like that through the mountains that are behind you there. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to open this up a little bit more, right? And get additional people involved. Like you said, I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most for the next session. I think we had to kind of pick and choose some specific folks to join this time, but part of that was because of the time crunch. So I'm looking forward to having a little bit of extra time to really think about what next year is going to look like, have a period for call for presenters, right? That sort of stuff. And just hear from more people. And I think to me, what is inspiring to hear is a lot of people are talking about this. I think that we can certainly open up the CFP, but I also like the idea of continuing to put our ear to the industry and what the industry is talking about, and then inviting some of those folks as well for some different perspectives, maybe even opposing perspectives, and this just came to me right now. Maybe there's a room for a session or two that is to address the hard questions, because I think we can rah all day and just get fans in. What about skeptics, right? What about, can we hear from a person that tried to make it work and didn't quite make it work? Something like that would be really interesting for folks to hear, I think. So as you can see, our minds are going in terms of what this event can be next year and beyond.
One of the things I think that we got a lot of feedback on is that live session stuff. People really enjoyed being able to get involved and be a part of it. And I definitely think that we're going to try to find ways to make that more prevalent. I think virtual is the way that this makes sense, just because we want it to be accessible. We want people to be able to join in and be able to be part of it no matter where you are in the world. Which little tidbit, I don't know if people know that like attendees, we had 46 different countries register for this event, right? When we have that spread of people that want to be involved, I think it's important we keep it virtual, right? But then I think one of the things we got to figure out is how, all right, cool, but I want more networking. I want more people to walk away, and it's not just cool. We heard these people talk, and we spoke up a couple times, but like did I gain more contacts? Did we all get together and I get to exchange business cards like I would in a real event? Like part of this is about building community, and I think that we're gonna have some real opportunities we can try to find to allow people the space to do that, right? I think that's gonna be an important feature for us to kind of figure out as we go into this next event.
Yeah, and I don't think this has been solved in a way that is effective yet. How do you sort of recreate the networking side of an event like this when it's virtual? I think we can come up with something, though. I'm confident that we can be creative here and do something. Maybe it starts with folks being encouraged to just share more about themselves and where they're coming from in some sort of setting or forum so that people can connect. Like I always look at conferences as an opportunity to connect the dots. You know, I'm going through this thing. Here's a little bit about me. Here's what I'm going through. Does anyone else have a similar issue, right? And you can sort of see that because people are posting a little bit more about themselves. But we'd have to find a way to encourage people to do that, you know, and I think this is just some insight into some of the things that we're thinking through because, like we were saying before, it takes folks time to warm up to something like this and really share more about themselves. So how do we draw that out, right? How do we create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable sharing more about themselves so that they can connect with other folks?
I got $1 million idea. No one listening, you're allowed to steal. You're not allowed to steal it, or if you do, you gotta cut me in. So here's what we're gonna do. We should have it be like one of those like when you show up to like a dating event, you get like a couple minutes with each person, and they rotate, and you have to hit each person their thing. But we're gonna do it for like the champion stuff. So you join in you volunteer in the event. We give you a little digital name tag, and then you get like 2 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes with each person. We're gonna rotate you, and you gotta meet as many people as you can before the end of this stuff.
Speed dating.
It's speed dating, but instead of exchanging number, you're exchanging LinkedIn contacts if there's a connection.
I like that. I like that. That's something to explore for sure. But what if, you know, what if they don't get along? This is the speed dating, you know, thing.
Right.
So, well, we'd have to figure out some details there, but I like it, Mike.
You have a dip out button, like you just hit the button, you disappear.
Yeah, exactly. Oops,
We might
sorry.
end up with some like hurt feelings that way. We gotta be delicate here, but
Yeah, we have
I
to be
love the idea,
delicate.
right? Like,
I do like the idea. I think that's good. And I think it's all about community, like you were saying before. So how do we encourage people, right, to get more involved? Because that's really what is extremely helpful. I don't think you can accomplish what you're looking to accomplish in your career or life, etc., without connecting with other people. You know, you can't do it alone. You need other people to help in certain situations. So the more that you can spend, more time you can spend helping others to make sure that comes back around, I think is really important. So anything else, Mike, that you wanted to cover here?
no, I mean, my thing goes back to for this whole thing is I think this was the right time, right? I think we got together a lot of the right people, and it made it really successful. And this inspires me to what this can become in the future, right? And I will say this: the more people I talk to, I think a few years back, if you go like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And I were to bring up on every call, oh, you ever heard of a champion program? And most people are like, what? Like it wasn't quite catching on. I don't think I get a call or I talk to a security person nowadays that at least doesn't know what it is or has heard of it or considering if they want to do it. I think that it's becoming a normalcy within the industry. And I'm really, really excited to see like between, let's say, now and next year, how has that changed? Like, what does that future look like over the next 12 months? Like, how many more people are we having talking about it, engaging it? We capped that at 500 for this conference. I will tell everybody on this call right now, we are not limiting it to 500 next year. We are going to let a lot more people come that are interested and want to join this conversation. So for what I would consider pretty much a pilot of this type of experience, I think it was successful, and we've proven people want to do this. People want to be part of this community, and we're going to keep doing it in the future.
Absolutely. That's probably a good note to end on, unfortunately. I think we can continue to go on and on, Mike, you and I, about this particular topic, but I think that's a good bow that you just put on that. So this has been another episode of the Security Champions podcast. Thanks, Mike, for joining me. I'm really looking forward to the summit that we're going to be planning for next year. And yeah, I appreciate you joining me and talking all about the summit, how it was leading up to it, how it went, and the future of it, and also of Security Champion Program. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and we will catch you next time.